This is the Badger247 podcast with your host, Evan Flood.
Yes, the Badger247 podcast is back. You're probably wondering, why is there a podcast on this site now? Why is this coming back now? To be honest, I've never really been a big podcast guy. Certainly never believed in them a ton in terms of value to a website. Obviously, the game has changed a little bit now, and they are quite crucial to a lot of different sites, not necessarily ours. I don't know if this will be a focal point of what we do, but I think in order to keep growing and take it to the next step, it is something that we need. I've put this off for a really long time. I'm sure our day ones probably remember me and Kyle doing it. Be over a decade now. When Russell Wilson came, that was, I think, one of the first episodes we ever did, Kyle and I. So that made me feel a little old, kind of reliving memory lane there. But another reason I never really did them is, I'm not that type of person in terms of media personalities. I think in this space, people expect you to be a certain way, and that's not really my nature to necessarily be an outgoing, talkative guy. You can probably tell it in my monotone voice that I don't necessarily get too excited or too depressed one way or the other when things happen. So I don't necessarily have that charismatic way about me, and I'm trying to get outside my comfort zone a little bit so I can bring you guys a little something extra to the site. And I think there is value. You guys spend a lot of time. Obviously, a lot of you spend money at this site. I think I do owe it to our subscribers to try and take it to another level and give you guys more bang for your buck any way I can. The other reason I've just stayed away from it is it's very time consuming to edit these things. And, I always found more value in writing it. I can write it on the site, edit it, do what I got to do a lot faster than I can record a hour podcast, whatever it's going to be, and get you guys the info you need and get you on your way. And most of the time, at least, Badger247, as you guys know, it's for more of the hardcore fans, right? The guys and girls that live, breathe Badger athletics. So by the time I get a podcast up, most of you already know the news, and I'm just recycling things that you already know. And that's one thing I do want to do with this podcast. I want to do something different. I don't want this. You have a lot of choices with podcasts, right? And I've listened to a few of them to try and figure out how I want to start. Not knocking anybody in particular, but I feel like the one area I don't want to go down is these recycled takes that you're going to hear 3, 4, 5 times, however many podcasts you listen to, however many websites you get your news from. I don't want this to be a thing that's going to be a time waster. When I speak to you, I want it to mean something. I don't necessarily care how many people listen to this podcast. What I want is for listeners to feel like it was worth their time. Because like I said, you do have a lot of options. And when you come here, I want you to feel like you're not going to hear what I have to say at other podcasts. I'm going to try and bring recruits on as much as I can, reel in special guests as well, so it's not just me talking up here. As far as a frequency, I hope for a couple times a week. As many of you know, I got the toddler at home now, and I'm not a stay-at-home dad, but obviously I do a lot of work from home, and I'm watching them during the day, but the wife's schedule actually works out really well. In the fall, I actually have more time during the football season, so that's another reason why we're bringing it back here now as well. But the biggest reason, like I said, I want you guys to feel like this was worth your time. If you're going to give us a click and, give us a half hour of your day, I want you to walk out of here smarter than when you did when you came in. As far as a format goes, I'm not 100% sure as I'm even saying this where I'm going to upload the podcast to. You've probably noticed 247 Sports has their own setup. It's accessible through the website. You can probably see, the different team I mean, they're all there in one spot on the site if you've perused it before. But also, you can download them, I think, on Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever. It's just going to take another week or two to get me set up on that, and I think get me some equipment as well. So I'm kind of doing a little practice run for now and kind of running solo on this one, but eventually it'll be integrated into the site. With that being said, let's get to it. Big news on Monday, aside from the depth chart drop, Paul Chryst confirms that senior quarterback Chase Wolf is going to miss an extended period of time with a knee injury. The initial report was that it's a torn meniscus. Chryst did not confirm how long Wolf would be out, but the report did speculate that it could be the entire season. You see on Twitter, Badger Nation, the panic mode's already set in. The diapers are out. I'm going to tell it like it is. I don't think this is as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be. Obviously, for Wolf to even see action, Mertz has to get hurt. So there's that. It's not an ideal situation to have an inexperienced backup quarterback. I get it, but I think this is a good thing if you're Wisconsin. Maybe not short term, but long term. And obviously you never root for an injury. I shouldn't say good thing. But I think there can be light at the end of the tunnel, even if Deacon Hill and Miles Burkett don't see a snap. Have them have to prepare as if they're the starter. Right? It's a whole different ball game on Saturdays when you know you're not going to play. When you know you're one injury away, one snap away from seeing that field, it's going to change your preparation. It's only human nature to know when you're on third or fourth on the depth chart and you know there's no way you're getting in that game unless it's garbage time. You're just going to prepare differently than you would knowing there's at least an outside chance that you may be called upon to help save a game, to help protect a lead, to maybe even have to rally a team back. It's just different. The other reason I say this, now Paul Chryst, Bobby Ingram, they know their team better than I do. But for the last year, at least during media availability, neither Deacon Hill or Miles Burkett have been getting meaningful snaps with that first or second team offense. One of them obviously is going to get that opportunity in practice now. I don't know if Wisconsin had been doing it while media wasn't sitting down watching. Maybe they have. And that's why when everyone asks me, what do you think Wisconsin has at the future of their quarterback position, I'm not going to be a stupid smart guy and pretend like I know because I don't, because they haven't put him out there. I mean, I can watch you throw on air. I can even watch you playing 7-on-7 when there's no rush in your face and you know you're not going to be hit. But until I see you with a full line in front of you, with receivers who are being pressed by defensive backs and messing with your timing as an offense, I don't really know what you are as a player. And that goes for really any position, but mostly the quarterback position is completely different. It's a completely different game when you know you're going to be hit versus when you know you're not. That internal clock speeds up in your head. You're looking at Nick Herbig across the line with his ears pinned back, ready to put you on your butt. You're having to find different throwing lanes when you're throwing over a full offensive line and a full defensive line. The game obviously speeds up. So we've seen Deacon Hill and Miles Burkett in 7-on-7 or just, individual quarterback drills, but I don't think it really means anything. So I can't sit up here and tell you that, I feel good about life after Graham Mertz because I have no idea. And maybe Paul Chryst and Bobby Ingram do, but I think you're going to find out a lot more about those two now that, at least one of them is going to be next in line here. The other reason I don't necessarily hit the panic button is you had a huge problem either way, whether Chase Wolf was healthy the entire season or not. If Graham Mertz goes down with an injury, you still have a big problem. This is the part of my job I hate because you're dealing with college kids and I hate tearing somebody apart. I'm not going to do that. But Chase Wolf has had a couple of opportunities when Mertz has gone down. And the two games that come to mind, Minnesota 2020. Obviously, Wisconsin won that game. You could say very fortunate to win that game, and Wolf actually did make a couple of throws in that one that really helped keep Wisconsin in the driver's seat or help put them over the top, but also had a few crucial mistakes, including an interception late in that one as well. And then the Michigan game last year when Mertz went down, I believe it was the first play of the second half, if I remember right. Wisconsin had all the momentum going into the locker room. It looked like Mertz was, finally returning to his former self after those 2 drives to cap off the first half to pull Wisconsin within 1 score. Wolf couldn't do a whole lot. Obviously, that was an elite Michigan defense. Ended up playing in the Big Ten championship game, made the college football playoff. Aside from, touchdown pass to Clay Cundiff late in that game that was essentially meaningless, it was a real uphill battle for Wisconsin's offense with Wolf under center. Now, do I think he's good enough to beat some of the lower tier teams in the Big Ten? With Braylon Allen, Ches Malusi, that offensive line, those receivers who, if you follow what I do the last couple weeks or so, I really like that group. Do I think he can win certain games in Big Ten play? Yeah. But the season's still in trouble if he needed to play extended games and extended snaps this season for Wisconsin regardless. I don't necessarily want to toot my own horn, and I'm playing Monday morning quarterback, but I've said for the longest time, take 2 quarterbacks when you need to. If you get a guy like Graham Mertz and that type of recruit, even Deacon Hill, who ended up blowing up to kind of a 4-star level player his senior year, you can dial it down. If you get your guy that you're that sure of, you can take one. But this program has had a quarterback problem for the longest time. You can't count on 2-star recruits like Scott Tolzien to develop and just all of a sudden go off after 3 years behind the scenes to take over the way he did. You can't count on Russell Wilson type transfers walking through that door. It's a tough position to recruit to if you're Wisconsin, given your history of running backs and a power run downhill game where that position, along with the offensive line, is glorified. It's a tough position to recruit, and you don't always get the Mertz, the All-American quarterback. Most of the time, you're getting under the radar guys you hope can develop and do something special. Those guys aren't coming in here with egos. I take 2 as much as I can until I hit. That's just the way I feel. And, the naysayers will go, well, you have to give up something else. Fine. We're talking about the most important position in sports. This program, right now, even last year, they've got everything. There's not, aside from tight end, which, you can get by without it. It's important to Wisconsin, obviously. But you can get by. But aside from tight end, there's not one position room I look at on this team and think that's not above average in Big Ten play. You throw an above average quarterback or just get somebody to play above average football. This is a dangerous team. And it would have been last year as well with that defense. You don't need a ton on the offensive side of the ball. That defense is going to keep you in just about every single game. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. You can't go into Ohio State going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. But, even look at that 2019 game against the Buckeyes. That first half, if Wisconsin puts a couple of scoring drives together and the wheels don't fall off in Columbus, that's a completely different ball game with how good that defense was that day. You know what you have on that. You know what you have on that side of the football. And you don't need to be special from an offensive standpoint to take this program to another level. So that's why I always say, if I'm Paul Chryst, I start taking 2, especially this cycle where you don't have anything. You don't have one commit, and it's approaching September. And you're going to be taking a fly, unless he thinks he's going to flip somebody that we just don't know about, and maybe he will. He has a track record of doing that at other positions. Maybe there's a guy out there they're quietly working on. I don't know. But more than likely, you're going to be taking an under-the-radar guy who doesn't have a lot of Power 5 attention anyway. why not take 2 of those and hope you hit? So again, not cheering for anybody to get injured or miss any time. Obviously, I credit Chase Wolf a ton. I think he's good enough to play at other Power 5 programs. Certainly could walk into an FCS room and start. I think he's talented. But I am eager to see what this means for Deacon Hill or Miles Burkett. I would assume it's Hill that moves into that backup job, given that, Burkett has one less year of experience under his belt, and Hill's kind of been through the grind a little bit, traveled to road games, bigger arm. I would assume has picked up the playbook more than Burkett has at this point. So, if one or both of them are able to get in at some point this season, I'm excited to see what they do because, like I said, they haven't shown it in practice. For whatever reason, those reps have not been given to those guys, at least during media availability. Now that we addressed that, let's go to the depth chart. My eyes right away went to inside linebacker. That was the position I was, in terms of who the starters were going to be, I was least sure about. First year inside linebackers coach Mark D'Onofrio kept rotating guys. It was different tandems every time we showed up. You thought the favorites were Jordan Turner and Tatum Grass. Turner obviously flashed almost more than any reserve on defense last season. Had those 2 interceptions. That was one shy of the team lead. He only played at 24 snaps on defense all year. Grass, sort of the veteran of the room. Don't have any seniors, but he had the most experience. Had seen some good snaps last year on defense, 63. Special teams contributor the last 2 years. Didn't wow you, in fall camp or spring ball, but he felt like the most solid, most reliable, most trustworthy in the group. I like what D'Onofrio did here, going against the status quo. It was Turner who got the number 1 job as expected. Alongside him, Muma Njongmeta, the junior. If you remember, we were talking about him 2 years ago as a guy we were really excited about. He would travel to road games, didn't play as a true freshman that season, but he was one of the guys that would travel to true road games. I know Jim Leonard talked a lot about him. From an athletic and speed standpoint, he was really impressive in what I saw in practice leading up to that season. I think he's the best blitzer in that group. He's a guy that can really fire off the snap and kind of find his way behind the backfield. So he gives you a little more athleticism and pop than a guy like Grass. Might take too many risks, might get beat. In terms of special playmaking ability, he's going to give you something different than a guy like Grass. You knew the combination wouldn't be Njongmeta over Turner. It just didn't make any sense. They were kind of the same guy in terms of skill set, minus I think Turner's a surprisingly good coverage linebacker for his spot. I think he's the most well-rounded of that group, which is why, if you remember fall camp last year, we were talking about him too as a guy to watch for this season, and he's only gotten better since then. But you knew it wouldn't be Njongmeta over Turner. You're talking about, putting a guy who's bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, defends the pass better. It didn't make sense. But I like that D'Onofrio didn't go with the status quo. I think he's looking to make Wisconsin a little more athletic, a little more exciting at this position. Now all 4 are going to play. Grass and Jake Chaney are also going to get their chance to get those jobs back here, at least during the early part of non-conference play. I expect all 4 to play against Illinois State in one capacity or another. But this is an exciting group with these 2 starters. I think Wisconsin's going to be a little more faster, a little more able to tackle in space, which, as good as they've been at that position, they have not tackled in space well from it. Some of those spread teams, you can go back to the Las Vegas Bowl, and that's where I really felt like, okay, Jordan Turner can be a star. Because he only played 7 snaps against Arizona State. He made 4 tackles, a couple against their dynamic quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who gave those starters absolute fits when he got outside the pocket. Turner made a couple of plays on him in space, or at least forced him back inside, where you're like, whoa. I mean, this guy can help you against the Ohio States, teams that are going to spread you out and try and make you tackle one-on-one in space. And I think Enjon Made is kind of a similar mold from, what he can do when he does get on an island. The other part that jumped out to me was corner. I expected Alexander Smith. I expected Jay Shaw, the UCLA transfer, to be the top 2. That didn't surprise me. What did was Cedric Dort in the nickel spot. I thought the Toledo transfer, Justin Clark, had that pretty well nailed down after spring. I didn't think much of it at the time, but Clark did go down in fall camp, which I think was a minor injury. Dort filled in and took that spot and actually had a really nice practice that day, especially in red zone goal line situations. He made a lot of plays on the football and kind of held his own against some of the bigger receivers. And I don't know if that was the jump off point for him to take that job. I don't know if Clark is potentially still banged up. Wisconsin did release an injury report, but didn't list anybody as questionable. And I think Alexander Smith falls into that category as someone who may miss week 1 with that hamstring injury. I would guess, based on the depth chart, that Clark might fall into that category as well. So perhaps that job is still his, and it's just Dort filling in for the first couple games, whatever it is, till Clark's healthy. I don't know. But that one did surprise me, as I thought Dort would kind of be a second team perimeter cornerback. Didn't surprise me, but Riley Mahlman wins the job at right tackle over Logan Brown. Kind of felt it was trending that way midway through fall camp, maybe a little earlier. I hate when this thing kind of happens as a recruiting guy, right? This is the part you hate when they're wrong and they don't pan out the way they're supposed to. And then you get that guy to come out and be like, see, they don't mean anything. Logan Brown, the second highest rated recruit in program history, now in his junior year, doesn't win that job, and you wonder what that means for the rest of his career, because there is no foreseeable path for him at this point if Mahlman and Jack Nelson do their jobs. And we're not talking about, 2 guys who are past their primes here, and, 2 shaky guys either. Although I do think Mahlman hasn't arrived. I think he's, still another year away or so, but he's got all the tools. I mean, he's another guy we were talking about a ton last year as, potentially the next great tackle at Wisconsin. So Nelson and Mahlman are 2 guys that are only going to get better still. Their best days are still ahead of them. You remember, Nelson played guard last year and was still pretty good. He's going to move back to his natural position at left tackle. So where does Brown go from here? That's the $1 million question right now. But my bigger concern is like I said, this is going to be one where the haters, they point to and say, you can't trust the recruiting rankings. This is going to be example number 1 that they use for Wisconsin over and over again. I guarantee it. Mark it down. The thing about Brown, though, is I really don't think it's a talent thing with him. I mean, I've seen enough. I went out to see him before Wisconsin played Michigan a couple years ago. I mean, I was blown away. He was the best left tackle I ever saw. When you talk about his physical abilities, his length, how light he was on his feet, the reach, the powerful hands. I mean, they ran these small, quick guys at him, and he was able to slide his feet, stay with them. He had played with that nasty streak. He just checked all the boxes for me. And you even see it in practice still sometimes. I mean, he'll have a play here, a play there. You're just like, there it is. That's the guy everyone thought Wisconsin was getting. That's the guy Alabama wanted. I think it's a consistency thing. I think it's a health thing. Obviously, he battles diabetes, which is something he and Paul Chris kind of opened up a bit about in the fall here. Injuries have obviously taken their toll on him. You know, he has never been a guy that's been on the field. As far as I can remember, I don't think he's ever made it through an entire fall or spring camp without leaving a practice or missing extended time. Like I said, I went out to see him in high school. I believe the 5-star hype. And those who know me, I'm not going to pump sunshine and rainbows up your rear end. If I don't think somebody's good enough, I'm going to tell you. He did not fit that bill for me as somebody who I thought was overrated. Two other smaller parts we got to talk about. Tanner Bortolini. I heard he had surgery, but he should be back, I think, week 2. If not, then week 3. I don't expect him to be out too long. So what Wisconsin did was move probably the last person you'd expect to center. Trey Wettig, former All-American 4-star offensive tackle. He's 6'7", 315. He's the backup center right now for Wisconsin. And obviously that only happens at Wisconsin with that massive offensive line where 6'7", 300 plus pounds is never meant you're an offensive tackle. So that means Wettig, assuming he's already practiced there, he's played all 3 spots on Wisconsin's offensive line, which continues to be as versatile as it gets. You never know where you're going to end up when you sign up to play offensive line for the Badgers. Another move I liked, I shouldn't say I liked the Wettig thing, I have no idea. But a move I did like, Isaac Guerendo is going to return kicks. They didn't show kickoff return in practice, so I assumed it was going to be Stefan Bracey. Obviously did good things when he came back last season. I had the touchdown against Nebraska that kind of really flipped momentum after the Badgers fell behind 7-0 early in the first quarter. They're going to put the fastest player on the team back there and let him return kicks. And I like that. Obviously, when you got a guy like Guerendo, you want to use that speed as much as possible. Not going to get a ton of carries when you have a backfield that features Braylon Allen and Isaac Guerendo. Or I'm sorry, Chez Mellusi. Getting him the ball with room to run is always a good idea. There's not going to be a ton of carries for him this year. I actually do think he had a really nice fall camp. I will say that. I was never overly high on him. I get the speed thing, but if you can't run between the tackles, it's kind of irrelevant because at this level you're just not going to get a ton of chances to turn the corner and do what he did against Eastern Michigan. Especially in the Big Ten. I mean, those types of runs are few and far between. But he did look like he added a good amount of size up top. Out with this in the spring with the injury. Injuries have kind of been a bugaboo for him his whole career. I thought he really looked good in fall camp as someone who looked more decisive between the tackles, was putting the pads down a little more, popping those pads, falling forward, looked more physical as a runner than I had seen in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised if you can mix in 5 or 6 carries for him. If not more, given the opponent. You want to keep Braylon Allen and Chez Mellusi fresh as much as possible for November. We saw what happened when Mellusi went down and Allen had to carry that entire load by himself as Guerendo was already out. Offense really caught up with Wisconsin in that season finale against Minnesota without much of a passing game to help supplement the offense and move the ball there. So a healthy Guerendo might be a little bit of an X factor for this team. Getting him a chance to return kicks and getting that ball in his hands, using that speed like that move by Ballcrest.
It's time for the last word.
Wanted a unique way to wrap up each podcast. Don't know if this is going to stick, but if you guys have some ideas, I'm more than willing to listen and make some changes to it. I know a lot of people do questions at the end. I think that can get a little bland and certainly takes away from the mailbag we try and run weekly. So for now, we're going to highlight, one big thing from the day's workload, the week's workload, however frequent this podcast ends up being. Could be recruiting, could be team coverage, who knows, could be something completely different off the wall. Since it was all team coverage today, I'm going to go with recruiting and something that jumped out. Have you watched that Colin Dixon film yet? If you haven't, go to Huddle, watch those first 2 weeks. If you remember my coverage about his commitment, I think I didn't knock it. I think it was kind of on par with what Wisconsin usually gets from the wide receiver position. Certainly didn't want to put him on the same level of a Shimmeray DK, Danny Davis, Kendrick Pryor, Quintez Cephas type. I don't even know if I would have, knowing what we know now, I don't even know if I would have put him up there with Skylar Bell, but I might be taking that back by the end of this season. Through 2 games, this guy's got 13 receptions for 320-some yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't know the talent level of the teams he's facing, but when you watch the film and how easy it looks for him, I don't really care. If it's subpar talent, that's what it should look like, if you're a 4-star wide receiver going up against these guys. I mean, he's showing glue-like hands, everything's sticking to him away from the body. 6'2", 6'3", 215, 220, who's really starting to run like a deer in the open field and pull away from people. I think it's the second clip on his week 1 film. He catches a short pass and then just buries a kid with the shoulder near the boundary and puts him on his rear end. He's doing it all on this tape, too. They'll use him on the line a little bit as a blocker, sort of like a, flex tight end. He's returning kicks. He's playing outside linebacker and safety on defense and causing havoc behind the line of scrimmage on that side of the football. He's going down the field catching deep balls with defenders draped all over him. The one thing I did say, though, when he was committed that I think is sometimes a really good sign of somebody who takes a lot of pride and puts a lot of effort into their craft is the late hands as a wide receiver. That's something that's very difficult to teach. Because we're all taught early, right? Watch the ball into your hands. So you get your hands up and you watch the ball into your hands. Well, as you get older and you play more experienced defensive backs, that's really not how you want to play it. The majority of defensive backs aren't going to turn around and play the football. The really, really good ones will. But most of the time they're taught to continue to run with the wide receiver, watch his eyes, and watch his hands. And that's kind of the tip-off of when they get their hands up and try and make a play on the football. Well, as a receiver, if the ball is 3-4 seconds out from contact and you put your hands up, what's the defensive back going to do? He's going to get his hands up. He's tipped off that the ball's coming your way. Dixon's got a very unique ability to get his hands up at the last second and still make that catch look effortless. It's subtle on film, but that's something that takes hours upon hours behind the scenes to work on and be able to trust on a Friday night. Wide receiver film is arguably the toughest to grade because it all kind of looks the same in the end when you get the top 100 or so wide receivers in the country. Obviously, the 5-star guys, they'll have just different measurables and the freaky things they can do that really separate themselves. But when you get into the mid 3-star to mid 4-star range, I think it's very hard to separate yourself on film. Now, the thing I also like about Dixon and why I think he's going to push for 4-star status is he's not necessarily a guy that's focused all of his energy on football yet. He's a very good basketball player as well, was an all-state guy as a junior, runs track. I think football is his love. I don't think it has 100% of his attention. He's got other commitments he does right now, but he's 6'1", 6'2", 210, 220. He's ran under a 4.5 in the 40-yard dash. Squats over 400 pounds. There could be something there for Wisconsin. Wisconsin, because of their run game, because of the tailbacks they have not gotten credit for how well they've recruited the wide receiver position as of late. They really haven't. I mean, you can go back 2017. How good was that receiving core in Quintez Cephas, A.J. Taylor, Danny Davis, Kendrick Pryor? I mean, that's the best one in my lifetime. And you look at if I'm right, and Wisconsin's once again stacked to that room with Skylar Bell, Marcus Allen, Shimmery DK, Keontez Lewis, Dean Ingram. I don't think it's as good as that 2017. I'm sorry, the 2017 and 2019 group, I should say. Cephas was obviously gone for that year. I don't think it's that good, but I think it's one of the better ones in my lifetime. Again, if they can just get the quarterback play, I think they're looking at some scary offense. And, they did a better job in the 2022 cycle than I probably gave them credit for as well. You got to see a little bit of Vinny Anthony and Chris Brooks, who weren't highly touted, but they could do some things. They're closer to being ready to play than I thought they were. I don't know what their long-term upside is yet. It's certainly not as high as the Tommy McIntosh kid, who's 6'5" and runs a 4.5. He's going to be a little bit of a project boomer bust type kid. So he could be somebody to watch down the road as well. But Albus Woodhead and before him Ted Gilmore have really given Wisconsin, I think, more weapons than we're previously accustomed to. I mean, we all remember the days when that ball had to go to Jared Abbrederis, that ball had to go to Alex Erickson, or it went nowhere. I think Dixon's another one that could be sneaky good here. And he's going to be climbing up my power rankings if this type of film continues throughout his senior season. I'm going to check him out before the Ohio State game here next month and get a better feel for him. But that film is really exciting. Go check it out if you haven't yet. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Again, apologize for some of the cheap audio tricks with the announcer voices and sound effects. Again, I'm not set up with the 24/7 Sports hosting yet, so hopefully just one more of those to make it sound somewhat professional, and it's not just me talking the whole time. Tried to break it up a little bit as best I could. Again, if you have any questions, comments about what we can do better with this, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. Going to try and line up a guest for hopefully Thursday or Friday if I can get one more episode here before the Illinois State game. If you need more content, I got other stuff. Look it up, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Not hard to find. If you need more than the website and the podcast, it's all kind of different. I don't necessarily promote it all, but there's different stuff than maybe what just shows up on the website or what will show up here. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will get back to you in a couple of days.